Okay, so I think we are now live by the looks of it. Let's
Still
just have
got
a
them
little look.
crossed.
Let's have a look. So I think we are live. So let's just have a little look. See, so if you could let me know in the chat section if you can hear us okay. So this is myself, Dave. Myself, Dave. Or it's starting
Swap us
well.
over.
Myself, Paul, and Dave. So could you let me know in the chat if you can actually hear us okay? And if you can, then we can just crack on. Excellent.
Yeah.
Sounds okay. Dave, can everyone hear Dave?
Charlie can hear us. That's all. That's good enough for me.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, excellent stuff. So we're going to try a few little bits and pieces out tonight just to make sure that everything works okay. And then we're going to crack on. Excellent. Thank you very much, Cleary Design. Okay, so let me just quickly introduce my guest tonight, which is Mr. Dave Foy. And I'm sure all of you are going to know this gentleman. He's an absolute powerhouse when it comes to working with WordPress, Elementor, funnels, and now with his new venture, where he's going to take a look at helping people build their own training business, helping them out in all the different aspects for building training courses, building your confidence, and all those kinds of really good things. So I'm super, super happy tonight to be joined by Mr. Dave Foy. So I'd love it if you could take a moment to say good evening, and I'll let Dave just have a few words.
Yeah. Hello there. And well, thank you, firstly, Paul, Dave, whatever your name is, for for allowing me onto your live stream. I'm a big fan. Um, I was hoping tonight we could talk about the usual stuff that we talk about, like microphones and cameras and lights and monitors and teleprompters and stuff like that, which is
Yeah,
what we usually end up talking about.
we do indeed.
We do, but it is an absolute pleasure. I remember, Paul, back in probably like late 2018, maybe. I'd been watching your WordPress tutorial videos for ages, and I've said this like many times. I'm not kind of trying to blow smoke up your ass, but you are my absolute favorite WordPress tutorial YouTuber, bar none. And I remember you contacted me like late 2018 to say, yeah, wouldn't it be nice, two Brits doing a bit of sort of a collaboration on something sometime? And I was just up to my neck at the time with, I don't know, some course or other. No fear funnels probably I was making. And so I had to say at the time, oh, I've not got time just yet, but at some point, and we've been talking about doing something together like ever since. So tonight's the night.
Tonight is indeed the night, and I'm super stoked. Like I say, it's been great to actually get to know you from not just the tutorials. And I think that's the nice thing about it is we've actually struck up a genuine friendship, and I think that's been really, really good because I think when you're in this kind of space, whether you're creating courses or whether you're creating YouTube content or a combination of those things, it
Mm,
can be quite a lonely kind of affair. You kind of feel like you are very much sat in front of a screen with a light and a camera, and a microphone, and a computer keyboard, sort of typing stuff up and coming up with ideas. And it's kind of really disjointed work environment from what you're probably used to. I mean, you come from a teaching background. I come from a teaching background. We're used to being around groups of people and helping and teaching and answering questions. So when it's a solitary thing, it's a very, very different situation to be in. So it's just been nice to have a like-minded individual like yourself where we can chuck ideas about tech, you know, ideas about courses, classes, just general chit chat about all these kinds of
mm,
YouTube-y kind of things. And for me, it's just been an absolute godsend to have someone that I can just talk to
yeah,
and just knows exactly where I'm coming from at any given point. So
yeah.
it's cool with me.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we'll stop the Mutual Appreciation Society soon, I'm sure. But yeah, you really actually helped me, Paul, and I'm sure that you do this with everybody else as well. But you really kind of helped me up my game in terms of video and content delivery and all this stuff. Anybody watching this, I hound Paul with I don't know, it's about 10 messages a day, is it something like that?
At least.
Just like, how did you do that? And what's that thing that you've got there? And where's that microphone gone? And just constantly hounding Paul about tech stuff all the time. So yeah, it has been a real pleasure, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, tonight, Dave, what exactly are you going to be talking to us about? Because I understand you've moved over to Webflow for your davefoy.co project. So, I
Yeah,
think we're going to kind of have a chat about why you did that, why you chose that over WordPress, and maybe a couple of examples and answer some questions.
Yeah, definitely. It came as something as a surprise to me as much as everybody else, really, to use a different platform to build a website. Long story short, I'd wanted to have a bit of a sort of a sidestep or a bit of a pivot away from specifically teaching people how to use WordPress and Elementor to actually helping techie techie people like you and I and loads of other people that we know, helping them to do what I've done, which is package up their expertise and their skills into online training. It has been an absolute life changer for me. And without getting without getting too soppy about it, the impact that I'm able to have on other people's lives is just like, I mean, it's just what I get out of bed for, and I think also I've been able to. I felt a little bit like I was on some kind of hamster wheel with client work, in terms of trading my sort of time, my hours for money and things like that. So I kind of wanted to teach other people, to kind of empower and inspire other people to see that the tech skills and the expertise that they've got is something that they can package up and create a really profitable, enjoyable, meaningful business teaching people online. And it's not just I haven't got some innate skill. I'm not anything special by any means whatsoever. But so I figured I needed a new website for this new venture. So, and I wanted to kind of put it in my own name for various reasons. And so I thought, well, I'll create myself a new website. And there had been, I'm trying to think how to put this. There had been this slow burning kind of dissatisfaction with WordPress and Elementor, and I'm happy to go into the reasons why. But there'd been this kind of like this slow burning dissatisfaction for various reasons, and I thought to myself, well, I'm not into switching tools for the sake of it. Anybody that knows me, anybody in my student groups will know I am not the kind of person that is constantly saying, look at this new tool, look at that new tool, hey, look, a squirrel, because it's stressful. It's it's there's a high cost to switching tools in terms of, well, in terms of the time it's going to take you to learn to get proficient in using a new tool. There's the cost of that. There's also kind of like the sunk cost, the cost of the everything you've learned so far, and let's face it, all the lifetime deals that you've bought and all that kind of thing. So I'm not a I'm really, really not into switching tools for the sake of it. So I am definitely not that kind of person who's telling people constantly, to go and look at other stuff. Um, but I think it was that kind of dissatisfaction, and also thinking back to before I used WordPress, I used a few different CMS systems. One of them was called Expression Engine. There's another one called Craft as well, and they were just like so much simpler and, dare I say it, calmer, maybe, a calmer experience where I could create exactly what the client needed and nothing more. And I wanted to kind of return to with my own site to see if I could kind of get that back again, without all the plugins, without having to plug this in and that in and get this and get that and set this up. So I I I'd heard a few people talking about Webflow, and for over the last couple of years maybe, and I'd always just discounted it. It's like, yeah, I'm sure it's great, but I'm happy. I'm happy using WordPress. It's great. Elementor is great. I don't need to look at another tool. But just gradually, just more and more and more people that I know and respect were starting to use it, which prompted me to give it a go. And so I did. And I, after a few false starts, eventually built the new site with it, and just really, really, really enjoyed the experience. I kind of felt like I got my, you know, web design mojo back, really, that excitement about development and maintaining the site. So it was it was a good move, but it certainly prompted quite a few questions. You're the Elementor guy. You told me to use Elementor. What are you doing? That kind of thing. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, and I know where you're coming from with that. Like I say, you can very much get pigeonholed into you only do this kind of work, you only use these kinds of tools, and there's a kind of a bit of a shock, I think, from people when they see, well, actually, there are other tools out there that might be better for a given job. And I think that's the thing that I've said in past live streams is just because you know WordPress or you know it really, really well, doesn't mean to say that it's the right tool for the job. You know,
Mhm.
Webflow has a lot of strengths going for it, as do a lot of other tools.
Yeah.
And I think WordPress is a great platform for if you like the DIY and you don't mind the maintenance that comes with it. Whereas a platform like Webflow, once you're on there, you don't have to think about that. It's like having a care plan for your car. You know, you drive it, you use it every day, but then if something goes wrong or something needs to be updated or fixed, serviced, whatever, you just
Mm.
let them get on with it. And you don't have to think and stress about that kind of thing. So I can
Yeah.
definitely appreciate why you would have looked at Webflow for, for projects that you're working on for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there were a few things really that crossed my mind. Um, One of them was, I mean, just to say, I'm not down on WordPress at all. You know, I'm not saying don't use these tools or these tools are great and these tools are not, because I think with any software, in fact, not just software, I mean, literally anything in life, you know, kitchen knives,
Yeah.
cars, I don't know, there are trade-offs. There are always trade-offs. There is nothing that is the perfect tool.
No.
um, and you know, I think WordPress has significant advantages and some significant disadvantages.
Yep.
Exact same with Webflow as well. But what I think prompted me to, because there are quite a few, I don't know, kind of common objections, I would say, for using Webflow as a platform with its kind of hosted, locked-in nature.
Yeah.
Um, but I started to think, well, I've always been a believer in the best tools for the job. So, for instance, my online course platform that I run all my courses on is Thinkific.
Mm.
After I'm not having to go at anybody who runs an LMS on WordPress. It's absolutely fine. But for me personally, and you know, talking to experienced educators online, I just figured I wanted to use a separate hosted platform with I could just put my content up there and get on with teaching and get on with selling the courses and supporting my students, you know, none of the maintenance, none of the headaches, none of the fiddling, none of the upgrades, none of the plugins, none of the, you know. Um, so I and that was just a really, really great move. The cost is actually probably less
Mm.
um overall long
Yeah.
term, with that membership platform, my email marketing, you know, there are just so many things that I'm happy to choose the right tool for the job, which is what made me think it might actually be something worth looking at.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you're going to have to rebrand your No Stress WordPress now and just sell them Webflow instead. You know,
Yeah.
that's the opening lesson. Use Webflow.
There we go. Oh, are you recording this? Because that's it. Done.
What's
Yeah,
my commission rate? 50%?
That's fine, mate. Yeah, good one. I have to say, I mean, I'm supposed to be teaching people how to make, like, techie people how to make techie online courses.
Yeah,
So at the moment, I've got no desire really to kind of become, you know, the Webflow guy and all that kind of thing. And I still think WordPress and Elementor is great. I'm still, you know, happily supporting the students who are still using that. I will no doubt use WordPress myself again. Um, so I'm not into kind of like evangelizing, telling people. Sometimes I have had a few, not many, one or two reactions for people that have been very much, God, I don't know. It's like this. It's like we were saying, like this kind of almost tribal thing, you
yeah.
know. It's like you won't make me switch. Like, I'm not
Damn
trying
you.
to. I don't care what you use, really. You
Just
know,
do a good job with it.
just do a good job. And
Yeah,
honestly, if you can build the site quickly in your own way with your own workflow, and you know, then with the tools that you're happy with, then happy days all around. Because ultimately, it's the site, it's the content on it, you know,
of course it is.
um, that is the key. So, but yeah,
Okay, so my next question for you then, Dave, or my next request for you is how do you fancy giving us just a quick whistle stop tour of the Webflow interface and just some of your initial findings. So just take it for the fact that we know nothing about Webflow, which in my case
Mm.
is pretty much on point. Um, and just show us, what you liked about it, what maybe
Yeah,
pitfalls you kind of came across when you started. It'd be cool to sort of see your sort of take on the Webflow interface and just give a kind of, like I say, a whistle stop tour of what it is and how it kind of works.
yeah, definitely, yeah. So I won't kind of particularly point at things that I like as such. It was just literally just we'll just have a look around. Yeah. So if you can share with my screen,
All done for you, sir?
marvelous. So when you sign up for Webflow, you sign up for an account and you get your dashboard here. I don't know whether you can see. I was bummed that up slightly. You get a dashboard here with all your projects. You can put them in folders and things like that. These are all projects in development. I should say, just while I'm here, Webflow's pricing is. We'll come on to the pricing because I think it is actually incredible value. But the pricing, we'll come back to pricing later. But yeah, the pricing can be really confusing. I've just figured it out myself. So this is my project, my site. So if I go into what they call the designer is um, the everything happens. I'm going to zoom back out again. Oh, there's my face. I'll get rid of him in a minute. So what we're looking at the moment is basically like the Webflow interface for this entire site. One of the things I really like about it is that everything is in this UI. Literally everything for this site is in this interface. You know, all the pages, all the posts, all the CMS collections, all the settings and the styles and the lot. So that's one thing that really appeals. It's so I've found the workflow to be really, really fast. I'll give you a quick tour just to show you around. So basically, down the left-hand side, and I appreciate this is probably going to look a little bit small for people, but I'll just zoom in slightly. Down the left-hand side is all the kind of content, stuff that you add to pages, symbols which are like templates, like master templates, the navigator for the page. So I mean, if you're familiar with Elementor, you'll know exactly what this is. You can drag things around, and I'm not going to mess around with it too much because it is my live website. But so and I can click on stuff here, and it's going to open it up in the in the navigator here and drag things around, and I can I mean I suppose the other thing that I have loved about Webflow is the just complete and utter flexibility. Like I find a lot. I mean, Elementor is an amazing tool, but and it's amazing if they've provided the features and the functionality and the layout and everything that you need. If and if they have, then it's great. You're flying. If they haven't, it can be utterly frustrating. And then obviously what you've got to do at that point is then look to third-party tools, or you might have to code some CSS yourself. And then you get into the issue. I find, getting into the issue with third-party add-ons is that if they've not updated their add-on after Elementor, I've had a big update, and the whole thing crashes. So this is the navigator down here. I'm going to just stick with this left-hand side just for a second before we look at all this. So that's the navigator. Here is all your pages, or should I say your static pages. So I've got like various folders here with various I'm just doing like a little course at the moment. So here's the course, and there's the registration page and the success page and the replay page and the register. There's all of that kind of thing. So now static pages in Webflow are literally just like standalone pages. So the pages where it's just a completely standalone design, a bit like with Elementor. If you use the Elementor full width template, for example, you build it, and that's what it is. So so all of these are my static pages so far. So I've got like a little tools recommendation page and things like that, which is basically full of stuff that you've recommended, Paul.
Well, what
Affects
can I
my
say?
bank account. Significantly affects my bank account. Thank you very much. So that's the pages. So they are just like static pages. I'll come on to why I keep emphasizing that in a moment because it trips people up, but you'll see in a minute. Then here you've got CMS collections. Remember, again, this is all just content, right? It's all just like pages, stuff that you add to your pages, CMS stuff. Another, what I just found just, I don't know, quite kind of mind blowing really with Webflow is that it's got the concept of like custom post types, database driven dynamic content, custom fields, you know, all the kind of like ACF stuff is all just built into the system. And I mean, it is an absolute beauty. I'm not really using it too much at the moment, but you can create literally any kind of like CMS collection that you like. So that might be blog posts. It might be, I've got mine for my legal pages, very sexy collection there. But you know, the terms and conditions, the privacy policy, the cookies. So, but you know, you might, if you've got like a team section on the site, or I don't know, you've got like a car dealership, or you've got like menus for a restaurant, or literally anything, even like for instance, if you just had a services section on your website, for instance, you know, with a like a listing page and click throughs to individual pages on each service. So literally anything where you've got repeated content with a similar template, you know, it looks similar, then just create a CMS collection. So here, for instance, I'll just show you really quickly. Legal pages. I'll tell you what, you're probably dying to see what they look like. It sounds so exciting. Here we go. Right at the bottom, legal. So, you know, privacy page, cookie policy page, disclaimer, all the stuff everybody reads. The first thing they read when they hit the site. It's really, really simple stuff. So I just thought, well, I'll just create a CMS collection for those. They've all got basically the same layout. I can create a template for them. The flexibility. I mean, basically, you can just create them and plan them and everything as much as whatever you like. You know, you've got. I won't go into all the details, but you've got all the like conditional stuff, and you've got one-to-one relationships. You've got like many-to-many relationships and one-to-many relationships. So for instance, like my legal pages, I'll just click the little settings here. You can just say, well, you know, if you're familiar with custom post types anyway in WordPress, you'll probably see, you know, it's got a name, it's got the plural version, it's got the singular version, it's got the slug, the URL slug. You can literally just create whatever custom fields you like. I mean, there probably are more that you might need, but I've not found any at all. So you can basically like create your own editor with any of these. So I mean, what have I got here? It's very simple, like the headline on the page, the slug, the navigation label, because I wanted that to be a bit smaller sometimes, and the actual content. Well, that's really it. So I'll come on to how you actually make your CMS collection content appear on the site later on, but you've got an e-commerce section facility, which I haven't used, and I don't plan to. Then you've got assets. Now, assets is like your image library, images, you know, PDFs, documents, and things like that. You literally probably it'd be too much messing around to show you, but you literally just drag. Yeah, I can literally just drag stuff from my computer and just bang it in. It just automatically uploads, and I can. It's just got some very simple stuff like adding alt text, or you can tell Webflow that it's just a decorative image, and you can put them into folders, into your own custom folders as well, and you can kind of there's multiple, so you can bulk. The other good thing about images is, which I really like. Let's just find one. So here's an image, for instance. So I can just drag an image from here straight onto the page and boom, it appears. If I click the little gear icon-y little thing here, I can click on replace image. It opens up the assets in the left-hand panel for me, and I can just like scroll and have a look at my images and go, oh, actually, I wanted that one. And then it's just replaced. So it's really easy to just, you know, just work with images. It's got all the built-in responsiveness in. So although they retain the original image in the background, they're compressing them, they're creating lots of different responsive sizes, delivering the appropriately sized compressed image to different size screens and things like that. You don't get to have any say in how that happens. It just happens in the background. I'm just going to undo that so that it's the correct picture. And then there's some settings here, but that's basically all the the content stuff. Now, if on this page, literally, basically, if I click on, I don't know, here we go. If I click on anything here, then it's gonna scroll to that section, and anything that you select here on the right hand side is basically the settings for the thing that you've clicked, if that makes sense. So whatever you click on here, so if I click this section, these are all the style settings for that section, and the styling controls are exactly the same for every single thing, whether it be sections, divs, headings, paragraphs, buttons, whatever. Everything that anything that you've clicked, you get the exact same styling. You've got Flexbox, you've got CSS Grid. It's just incredibly flexible. So, for example, if I just open this up a little bit, there we go into that container, and here's the H1. So you can see here that anything that I'm clicking. So, for instance, here I'm clicking this this grid that I've created here with stuff inside it. So here you can see that I'm, there's my grid settings and anything else. When you click on, when you add anything onto the Webflow page, let's say I add a div, for instance. In fact, let me show you this really quickly if we've got time. I'm just going to just create a really quick test page. Oh, it already exists down there. Hang on. Yeah, exit that. I've already got a test page down here with hopefully not a lot on it. All right. So I can get rid of that. So I can add stuff to the page really easily. So I don't know, I can click on add elements here, and you've got various elements. I could kind of drag that paragraph in, or I could go into the navigator and drag it into place. I can just click it and it just appears on the page. You can, basically just stick it wherever you like. I'll just delete that. Now, what the way that Webflow works is a little bit like how CSS works. And it does pay with Webflow to just understand a little bit about how HTML and CSS works. Webflow's University, if you just look at sometime, just Google Webflow University, their like little training videos on the features are fantastic. And the guy is utterly hilarious. So the idea is that whenever you add anything to the page, then as soon as you start styling it here, so I don't know whether you can actually, I was going to just get rid of that button, and it's all a bit zoomed in because I've made my screen bigger for this stream so people can see what's going on. But let's say if I go into the nav, actually I don't even need to do that, right? I can actually, like in Elementor, you've got the finder, so I can Command E. I can just type, oh no, hang on, button, enter. So it's just going to just pop a button in there for me. Now, and you've got all kinds of different link settings here for buttons. So while the button here is selected, at the moment, it doesn't have a class, right? So a class is like a name that you give for a particular, set of styles. So whenever, if I start now tweaking, I don't know, the typography or the background color or the padding or anything else, Webflow is going to give it a name. It's going to just create one. In fact, let's just try it. So if I say, I'm going to just get rid of that a sec. So here's just the default button. I don't know. Let's say I say 100% width, right? But now that I've added any style to it, Webflow is going to give it a name. Now, this is just an automatically generated name. It happens to make sense. It's a button, which is great. So the idea is that you should really rename them to something that you understand. Now, I've actually kind of come up with my own naming system which I think is just like logical, but it doesn't matter. You could literally call it, ham sandwich, as long as you know what it means. So I could just call it, I could just rename that to my button. So the idea is I make all my changes, and then on any other button on the site. So I'll just show you really quickly. So let's just change this color here. By the way, it's got like a global color palette here that you can change. I'll change this to my accent color, and I'll change the actual primary color to that as well, so it's a bit easier to see. And let's click back on the button again. So we've selected the button. So if now, I'll just do it here because it's just easier. If I add another button, by default, it's not got any styling. If I now I say, okay, I've selected that button, and I actually want it to have the styles of my button, the class name that I just gave this yellow one. So if I just start typing my, it instantly kind of brings up like classes that exist already in Webflow that I've already created previously. And that then adds that we need to mess around with. In fact, if I just add, say, some, I don't know, little bit of bottom margin, 20 pixels will do. So that adds that 20 pixels margin to both of them. So what this does, which again, I found really like freeing, I suppose, is that global styles are set at the point that you are working on the thing. So you don't have to think, I want to change my button style. So now I've got to go back up here. I've got to go to another menu. I've got to find the button settings. You just change it there. As long as when you've got it, that your class is selected, then you're fine. So let's remove that. I'll just remove that button there. So I've actually come up with like a whole set. I've come up with like a style guide. So if I say, I mean, forgive my kind of quirky naming system, but if it's a component, I start it with a C. I don't know. I think I read about it once and it seemed like a really clever idea. So if I add C button, that's my button style done. Now, if I want to retain the basic button styling, which if you can see down here is all kinds of paddings and margins and font weights and colors and alignments and accent backgrounds and all that kind of thing. That is basically like almost, if you think of it as like a preset, if I give that button that class name, then all that kind of preset styles just appear. But Webflow's also got the concept of what it calls combo classes as well. So you can create like modifiers, I suppose is a good word for it, or variants. So I've created like loads of them. You can see them here. Actually, Webflow knows. It's like, I know what you're going to do because you've used these before. So I could say, I want the basic button styling, but I want this button to have my primary color background. Well, it looks a bit crap because it's on the same color background. So I'll get rid of that little modifier. But what about, I don't know, is button full width? There you go. So what that's done is it's retained the button style, which is like the global thing for buttons, but it's added on this like extra little bit. And you can see in orange, the stuff that is coming in from kind of like from higher up in the tree. This is why it's useful to know a little bit about CSS. You can see here in these selectors, it's actually showing me where all of the styles are ultimately coming from the body tag. So if you need to go back and edit just the button styles, or you need to go back and actually I want to edit all links or whatever it is, then you can come down to that. So I suppose just one thing before I come back to you. I think the thing that I've really enjoyed the most is CSS Grid. So I've just really enjoyed. This isn't actually a very good example, but let's find a better example. So I've used this grid, like just a simple grid. Let's find it in the navigator. Here we go. I don't know if you can see that there, but the ability to use CSS Grid to lay stuff out is just, I don't know. It's just been an absolute game changer for me, really. the fact that you can just drop a couple of divs onto the page, which is basically like, you know, onto divs are other columns. You can then say, right, on a parent div, I'm not going to go into all the details because we'll be here all night, but on the parent div that's containing those two columns side by side, there's a parent wrapping all of them. It's a doddle to create them. I can just say, make this CSS grid. It'll automatically make the grid. It'll then, I can edit that grid and I can change the, you know, sort of proportional sizes. You don't have to worry about percentages. You don't have to worry about padding. It just automatically kind of figures it out for you. And you can do, so I've got tablet, I've got mobile, what's it called? Landscape, that's the word. Mobile portrait as well. And so you can just basically just like tweak and stretch and span columns across multiple columns, all on just like for different screen sizes. And just to say as well, just before we come back to you, Paul, hopefully you're still there, is I've just found the responsiveness like a lot, like, I don't know, more reliable and easier in Webflow than it is in Elementor, partly because you get this mobile landscape. And I don't know whether you can see, but you've got this like ruler at the bottom of the screen, and it will tell you at certain points which devices relate to that screen size. So that's saying this is currently the iPad Pro 9.7 inch and the iPad Air and 2 and everything else. And that actually carries over to the preview. So here's the preview up at the top left. You click the preview. It's just an instant preview. But you can, on the preview, you know, you can literally just sort of drag that around and it'll tell you where you are. And you can also create your own breakpoints. So you can add larger breakpoints, so bigger screen and an even bigger screen and an even bigger screen, but you can also add breakpoints, custom breakpoints in between these as well, if you want to have yet another smaller screen configuration, I suppose. So
yeah, I think if you're coming from Elementor, let's be honest about it. Let's come back a second. We hop back to your screen in a moment. You know, breakpoints are one of those things that so many people talk about. You know, there's so many people are asking for those things. So when you kind of move over and you use another tool, an alternative tool that has the easy ability to not only use more than the limited 3 that we currently have when using a tool like Elementor, but the fact that you can very easily drop in as many as you want, especially if you've got, you know, you created a site for a client and they wanted to operate on a very specific type of device and look good on that, then you can target that device so much easier. And, you know, to me, Webflow is one of those things that I think you do need to have a bit more of an understanding, in very much the same way I think as Oxygen. You need to have that foundational understanding of CSS specificity, the CSS hierarchy, how, you know, you look at those things in the same way that HTML works in the same way. You think it all starts off with a hierarchy, and if you look in lots of these different builders, I noticed it in Webflow just now, down the bottom it'll show you the hierarchy of where you are inside your design right now.
yeah.
So I can definitely see why it's a more designer centric tool. In much the same way, I think that's why Oxygen is kind of resonating with certain types of people, especially if they come from more of a development background, as opposed to they just want something they can use to design in a very drag and drop way, which is what tools like Elementor and Brizzy and those kinds of tools give you. But there's limitations that come with that, and then you've got to start looking at hacks to get around those limitations. Whereas
Yeah.
with a tool like Webflow, it's kind of built the opposite way. You know, it's less about that drag and drop in everything into place, and you've got that very simplistic way of working, but it gives you so much more flexibility to what you can do then with a tool like Webflow.
Yeah, and it comes back to what we were talking about before, which is trade-offs.
Hmm.
So somebody might say the limitation of Elementor. I mean, let's just rewind a moment. Actually, 5 years ago, a tool like Elementor would have blown everybody's minds. You
Yeah.
know, if I could have gone back like 5 years or 10 years when I was hand coding websites, and somebody would have said there is going to be basically the Photoshop for web design. I
Yeah.
mean, my designer mates who couldn't code were just absolutely, it blew their minds. And so, those tools are amazing. But I think anybody who, if somebody heard me saying, "Oh, Elementor's full of limitations," in one sense, yeah, because you are kind of stuck with what they give you. But
Yeah.
let's face it, what they give you is pretty solid, like for almost all occasions.
Well, let's
You
let's be
know,
honest about it. No matter what tool you use, unless you are physically coding it yourself, and even then, if you're using frameworks and things, you still have limitations. Everything has limitations. Yes, you can get around some of those limitations by combining and hacking and all these kinds of things. But
hmm
part of design by its very nature, whether that's print design, graphic design, sort of web design, it's finding ways to embrace those limitations, work with those limitations, and still create exceptional end results. And I
hmm
don't think whatever tool you use, you will ever be in a sort of a scenario where that's not the case. I
yeah,
think a tool like Elementor kind of sits in between, it bridges that gap between the coders and the print designers, when they're working within design
hmm
and things. It gives you a lot of the flexibility those kinds of tools give you, and it kind of puts that person in the middle. So they don't need to understand the code, they just need
mm,
to know how to make it look like they design in Sketch or Figma or any of those
yeah,
kinds of tools, how that looks. And I think that's kind of where a tool like Elementor and page builders in general kind of
mm,
tend to sit. They branch out in other little directions and give you more power in this way and that way. But ultimately, that's kind of what they are. They're a sort of like a bridge between the code and the graphic design aspect of it.
yeah. I got into page builders because all the my marketing business partner, marketing focused business partner at the time, and some designer friends of mine at the time were desperate to just create like campaigns, landing pages
Yeah.
really quickly and test them out really quickly. And so they'd ask me, the developer, right, Dave, can you design us a page and develop it? And I'd look through my calendar, I was like, well, I can fit you in 2 weeks on Tuesday, and it was just absolutely maddening for them. So for them, like, well, first actually tools like Aveda, Divi, with the things, and then ultimately Elementor was just absolutely like game changing for them because they didn't have to wait for me to pull my finger out. So, and this, I mean, the thing with Webflow as well is that although there are lots and lots and lots of benefits, I'm going all night really, but you can make an absolutely colossal mess.
Oh yeah.
Um, you can just start styling stuff and adding stuff and messing about with stuff, and then find that if you've not had your eye on the classes that it's creating, or just there's all sorts of things, you've just not got your eye on it and don't quite understand just like what the concepts are,
Yeah.
you can end up in a mess. And it's why I actually took 3 attempts, like literally 3 separate attempts, and every time I'd have a go and I'd think, oh, it's too hard. And even the third attempt actually had sub attempts within it because I got my head around it, but then got so far building a couple of pages and thought, oh,
Yeah.
there's a more efficient way of doing this. I could have created one class here rather than 10. Start again. So
But
and
that's a
that's it.
good
That's the trade-offs.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's a good learning experience because once you kind of get into that mindset, it's the same as when you look at things like After Effects, completely different thing.
Mm,
But you have to work logically with After Effects. You have to, you have to look at this is the result that I want, and now I need to reverse engineer that to make sure that I get that in the most efficient way.
mm,
And when you're used to working with CSS classes and code and all those kinds of things, it becomes like second nature, but you
mm,
still have to go through the apprenticeship phase to get to the point where it does become second nature. And
yeah.
like you say, it's a little less forgiving than a tool like Elementor or Brizzy or you know anything like that, where you can just literally delete that block and start again, and it's like a fresh slate, but it's a small chunk.
Mhm.
This could have
Yeah.
much more far-reaching effects because you have done something right back at the beginning that has that sort of snowball effect that gets at the end, and then you realize, ah, damn.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that I kind of hit upon quite early on, because again I just saw somebody else doing it and thought I'm having that. was this concept of sort of style guides.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you just wouldn't mind just briefly sharing
Yes.
my showing my screen share again, just really quickly. So I got this concept of I've got a folder here called utility because it sounds really fancy and smart. It's basically just some pages like a basic template page that I use as the starting point for all pages. And but I've got this style guide template here, which I kind of stole from someone and then just kind of doctored. Um, but it's got like examples of the fonts and all the colors and the headings and some basically alternative kinds of headings um, that I created. Hang on, zoom back out again. And each one of these on the page is literally, if you click on it, it's got, I don't know, you can see, but in the top right hand corner, I've given it a style name. And so anything on the site that I decide I want it to be heading display one, I just give it a class name of heading display one, and boom, it's that size. So I had various examples of paragraphs and small paragraphs and big paragraphs and different kinds of buttons and all that sort of stuff. So, and lots of little helpers, give it no margin or give it loads of margin, just things I can just throw on. But the beauty, I suppose, of this, as long as as long as you are organized, is that you can create these kind of libraries that then you can just use on every project.
Hmm.
So, you can, every time I know I've got into it now, if I need a small paragraph, I just bang is size small, a class on it, boom, and it's done. But it's the sort of thing, basically, just trying to just emphasize the point that this is the kind of stuff you have to do yourself and organize yourself and create one of these pages yourself. Um, but but probably ultimately things like UI elements and all that kind of thing, you just create those and just create your own library and use them on every project. So yeah,
Awesome stuff. Awesome. We've got Andy Sawyer saying really likes the style guide. Is there any chance you could share that with him or with everybody in the stream when you get a chance?
hi Andy. Yeah, I suppose I could, no problem. What I'm putting together at the moment is like a Webflow separate little project that's got just some standard stuff in it that people could import into their own Webflow accounts,
Okay.
and then you can go in and literally just grab. You can copy and paste between projects like really easily. So to be able to use those. So yeah, I'd be really happy to share it. I am actually still constantly tweaking it,
I,
adding
I,
stuff to it.
I don't think you ever change though. I think that's something that, as your knowledge, as your kind of skills develop, and as your projects develop, your branding, your styling, those kind of things, to have
Mm,
something like that style guide that you can quickly flick back to, reference it, tweak it a little bit, and then it's boom, it's all set up and you're good to go, kind of thing. I think that's
mm,
something that's definitely going to be, important, and it's something that slightly different that I've done a very similar kind of thing um, to deal with the sort of style kits inside Elementor. I made it sort of like a
yeah,
free JSON
exactly.
download because it's
Mm,
so much easier to have one page that has all those things that you can globally style, and then you can quickly assign that to those. You can see it in an immediate effect. The font sizes, the relationship with the headings 1 through 6, all that.
mm,
That just makes the whole process a lot easier. So I'd recommend anybody that's doing this to have even just a
yeah.
simple template file that is just the key elements for that site, and then style those on the same page and then save those as a style kit or however you kind of do it inside Webflow that's
Mm.
easily referenceable.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are both like big fans of style kits. I don't know whether this is a pro style kits pro feature, but I noticed that John Frascos has started actually with each of the style kits template packs,
Yeah.
including the style guide template within there with everything set on it. So, and
It,
it's. I mean, I'm a massive fan of John's anyway, but he's yeah, I thought that was really good, really
yeah.
clever.
Genuinely nice guy as well. So,
He
next
is.
question then, Dave. Let me pull my list of questions up. We've kind of covered, I think, what you enjoyed about using Webflow. So I think we're going to go on to head scratchers. So, what kind of confused you about Webflow, and how did you kind of overcome them? Was it kind of trial and error, or was it, maybe look at it in a logical kind of fashion, knowing you're coming from a coding background, so you approach it in a slightly different way?
Yeah, well, I think what I started to do, probably like attempt number one to use Webflow, I made the mistake of like trying to directly map one to one,
Okay.
like the WordPress way of doing it, and then
Yeah.
trying to map that onto Webflow. So, like for instance, one of the things like fairly early on was thinking, hang on a minute, like in WordPress and Elementor, I can create single page templates, which then will be used by all my sort of single pages or pages with a certain tag, however you want to do it. I know single post templates is
Hmm.
great, but didn't seem to have that concept until I thought, no, actually in WordPress, a page is a post type, isn't it?
Yeah.
A post is a post type. Um, so then I thought, oh, well, it's just the same. It's just a CMS collection. So if I want lots of pages that have all got the same design and I just literally just fill in the content, there you go. There was I'm just trying to think on that on that same note, there was this concept of, like in Elementor, you can have multiple post layouts, or so you might have some blog posts which use one layout, but other blog posts like in a certain category or with a certain tag
Yeah.
would have a different layout. Now in Webflow, when you create a new CMS collection, in your pages section, they give you a single like blank canvas for you to
Okay.
build your template for that for the for the individual single post pages for that, and you do literally whatever you like. It's the flexibility is amazing. So what you have to do if you want the option to have multiple layouts is basically the way I've done it. Again, I've nicked this from somebody else. Is created like any parts of the layout that were like layout A, and then another part of the layout might be layout B. There might be stuff that is common to both layouts,
Yeah.
but so you just put everything on the page. I would wrap everything that is layout A in a particular div wrapper, and anything that's in layout B in another div wrapper, and give them a class of layout A and layout B, and then you've got conditionals. So, like, say for my posts, I could add a custom field, and that custom field might be like a drop down or a switcher or a tick box or something that says,
Yeah.
is this post layout A or layout B? And so in the conditionals in the template, I can basically say if it's layout A, show the layout A div and hide the layout B,
Yeah.
and
Maybe.
vice versa.
Yeah.
So I got around that one, which is just, it's nice actually just having it all in one place.
Yeah.
Um, it's really good. The other one was, where are all the widgets? I want widgets for, icon lists and accordions and all kinds of different layouts and functionality. And although in the add elements panel, there are a load of different elements that you can add, and there are some predetermined layouts and some functionality as well, like sliders and maps and light boxes and a few things, there's nowhere near the pre-built functionality that you get with Elementor. And the thing is that you just build it yourself,
Yeah.
uh, and it's just so easy to build it yourself that you realize that you didn't really, given the tools, I find anyway, I didn't need a post widget with the different layout options to put
Yeah.
the read more link there and show the featured image or not and all that kind of thing, or icon lists. There's just such a doddle to figure out anyway. And I suppose if you need them, you create them and then save them in a library, in a page, sort of like a UI kit library or something, and then you can use them again and again. Um,
That's kind
but
of what I was
yeah, that
gonna.
was
Sorry, that's what I was going to ask. Is there sort of like a globalized library? Is it you can create a global library you can access in any project, or are they
no,
globalized but only within a project?
yeah. So what the way that I've done it so far, because I've basically got like one site. Actually, I've got two because I'm building a site for my wife as well at the moment. Um, except I've got no time to do it, so she's never going to get it built. But don't tell her. But
That's good.
what was I going to say? Yeah. So what I've started doing is like creating just pages which have got like the style guide, certain UI elements, just all on the page. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to transfer those, just literally copy and paste them
Hmm.
into just a new like unpublished Webflow project, which will just house all of that stuff. So if I ever wanted to use them in another project, I can literally switch to it, copy, paste
Yeah.
into the new project. And that brings over all of the content, the HTML, the associated styles, even images if you want. There is Webflow actually have like the Webflow Showcase, which has got loads of clonable full sites, so you can actually clone them. They've got a templates library as well. Some are free, some are paid.
Okay.
You can clone those into your own Webflow account, and again, go into them, edit them as if it's your own site, grab bits, copy and paste. It's actually how I learned how to do a few things. Just looking at
Reverse
other
engineer.
people's sites and going, "How did you do that?" And then
Reverse
looking at it,
engineer.
thinking, yeah, yeah, just reverse engineering. So there's all that stuff. Other head scratchers is like having to be more organized. Having to kind of think up front, like, am I gonna, I'm gonna make this paragraph bigger now than the standard. Am I gonna want to ever do that again? Yes, probably. Create a style. So just
Yeah.
having to be kind of organized about it. With great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
there are no global style settings. So there's nowhere that you can go to. I said this earlier. There's nowhere you can go to, which is like, here is the list of all your global styles for this site. You edit the global styles at the point that they are on the page,
Okay.
and it updates all the other ones on the site that have got the same class name. I had to learn a bit about CSS Grid and Flexbox, which are both absolutely like amazing. So I landed on using CSS Grid for my main column layouts, and then using Flexbox for what I call like micro layouts.
Okay.
If I want to kind of lay elements out within a column, sort of vertically or horizontally or in some sort of fancy way.
So you sort of
Um,
nested layouts kind of thing.
yeah. Two more things really quickly.
Yeah.
One is there's no theme, which is a bit weird. So there is just no concept of a theme at all. Which in a sense, like, you can't switch themes. Like in the old days, you could have all your WordPress content and you could switch themes and it would basically be the same content, but just a different design.
Yeah.
I suppose we don't, with Elementor and us creating stuff in Elementor, we kind of lost that anyway, because
We have. Yeah.
um, so it doesn't really matter, but you don't have that in Webflow. There's no, if you buy a template pack or get a free one, because there's loads of free ones as well, and those template packs come with examples of loads of different landing pages, about pages, home pages, blocks of different kinds of sections and UI elements and all that kind of thing. What you're actually buying is basically, you then, I'm trying to get this right, in your Webflow account dashboard, you basically just create another Webflow site, which is you literally click a button and it's done, instant. Um, I wish I had time to show you all this stuff, but it's like instantly you've got a new site. Um, it gives you the option to say, do you want to use one of your existing templates that we know that you've got, paid or free, as the starting point? And it's basically just, it's not a theme. It just loads up all those pages
Yeah.
in your page library, and you can just use them and copy them and mess with them and do what you like. And the final one, which drove me insane, but again, once I realized, I thought, oh, it's just a WordPress thing, is I'd created a load of blog posts and added them into the site, like into the CMS collection, just in any old random order. And then I thought, so I dragged on the little CMS collection, I don't know what you call it, widget or something onto the page, got a lovely post layout, but they were in the order that I'd added them, the publish date. I thought, well, I want to change the publish date. That would be the best way of kind of putting them in chronological order. I'll
Yeah.
go and change the publish date. You go into the CMS collection, you go and look at your posts, and you can't change it. I'm
Okay.
like, eh? Where? Yeah. I've actually thought, this is a deal. This is it. This is a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Like, forget it. And then I realized, no, if you kind of understand like how databases work, the database has got the publish date, the date that you added it, but there is just literally nothing stopping you from adding a publish date field,
Yeah.
because there's a custom field for date, So just add a field for publish date. You can put that then whatever you like. Every single post, you just pick the publish date, job done, and then in the template, the listing template, it'll say there's a setting for what order, and you just say sort by the publish date custom field, and there you go. Phew. So
So
all was well.
it is a case of rethinking what you're kind of used to. If you're coming from a WordPress background, like you say, we were used to themes, and that's kind of been superseded a lot by page builders because
Yeah.
we rely on, especially like Elementor, we rely on it a lot less than we ever used to. And because, I mean, if you ever came from a page builder like Visual Composer, you'd know that even then when you were using a theme, if you changed to a different theme, you wouldn't have a seamless transition because it used loads and loads of little short codes and
Yeah.
classes that would just make your life absolute hell. So your content was basically useless to you. So, it is changing the thought process, not just the designing, but also the terminology. And I think that's where confusion comes in, is because when you go from WordPress, which has, taxonomies and tags and header templates and all those kinds of things, when you go to something that doesn't have the same terminology or maybe the same structure, it is confusing. I know when I've looked at Webflow, it's like you do go in there with these preconceived notions and terminology from the years you spent with tools like Elementor and WordPress and all those kinds of things. So it
Yeah.
is a shift in understanding is the first thing. I think that's probably what sort of confuses so many people to start off with, is that having to shift your mindset from the Elementor terminology and structure to something completely new. And that can be quite scary.
Mm. Yeah, and I think a lot of the way that WordPress works is based on the fact that it started as a blogging platform,
Yeah.
as a superb blogging platform. I think I discovered it because I wanted to create a personal blog, and it was so easy because it's got posts, it's got pages, a media library, all the fields that you get by default are all based on the requirements of blogging, tagging, categorizing is all from there. And of course, we've developed and pulled WordPress beyond what it was ever expected to do.
By a long
But I
shot.
think that's why we've got all that terminology, and you just get used to it. I mean, it's weird, but I suppose like loads of stuff in Webflow is weird as well.
Yeah.
I mean, web development's weird if you think about it. I think it's a miracle sometimes you can get stuff on a page. So
Yeah. Let's not talk about tables, is it?
let's not talk about tables. I've
Remember those
actually never.
days?
I built one website using tables for layout, and that was it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah,
That
one.
was hard work. Trying to get nested tables and nested tables to try to get it to do anything.
Yeah.
It was the
Well,
most.
I actually just really quickly going way back, and I was leaving my teaching job. I just had enough of the British education system basically, and I decided I was going to be a web designer because I'd already done a lot of dabbling with web design, and I loved it. So my dad had died and left me a little bit of money, not much at the time. So I invested it in a course, a web design course, and it was expensive. And I had already been learning about like web standards. So it was getting away from this whole concept of using tables, data tables for layout, and instead using this CSS thing
Yeah.
to create columns and styles and stuff as well. So I just kind of like learned that from the beginning because I just happened to be lucky enough to be around at that time. And so every time we had an assignment on this course, there was some remote stuff and there was some in person. You had to actually go down. Like it was in Dudley actually, near Birmingham, and you had to go down and just like submit these assignments. And I failed every single one, even though the sites looked great, everything was great. They just worked in all devices, but they were like, "I don't know what you're doing, but this isn't right." And they just failed me on every single thing. Like, ugh.
And there's a motto for
So
life: if you fail at classes, chances are you're going to be successful at life.
yeah, exactly, yeah, exactly. I
All
never
right.
got a refund.
What's yeah? What's my next question? Um. Okay. Let's say where Webflow has issues, and you'd like to take a look at fixing them. What's not perfect? What do you think could be improved upon with Webflow based upon the experience you've had now with your first couple of trials and then actually creating the site, and now not just creating the site but also maintaining it, adding new content to it, so you're kind of living
Mm,
with Webflow a little bit more now than maybe just building
yeah.
a site and handing it off.
Yeah, there's a few things actually. One is I wish when you there is a panel that will show you all the styles that you've created. It's like literally just like a big long list of all the styles that you've been creating as you've been working. And you can go down that list of styles and you can rename them actually in that list. So you don't have to go and find them on the site. You've got a list of them. And it will tell you also which pages on the site you've used those styles as well,
Okay.
which is great. So, you know, you remind you, that's for the homepage and whatever. That's really good. But there's no organization to it whatsoever. There's no searching, there's no filtering. If I think to myself, I'm sure I created like this class about such and such a thing. I don't know. I might even want to delete it or something like that. And it's a real night. It's something that I wish that they would fix definitely. Um, there is also this one actually. If it wasn't so good, this might actually be a bit of a deal breaker as well. I've got used to it now, but you can't have an index page in a folder.
Okay.
So it might be helpful if you just share, if you won't mind just showing my screen again, Paul, just really briefly. So if I'm just going to go into my pages list here, all right, and let's say I've got landing pages, right? So I've got a folder called, I'm going to zoom in a bit. I've got a folder here called landing pages, and I've actually given that a slug of L just because it's just shorter than having landing in the URL. So my site will be davefoy.co/L/ now, actually, maybe this isn't such a good example, but let's say this one. So I've actually got another subfolder within that called 5 things because it's an opt-in that I've got about 5 things you need to consider before you create an online course. So you can see here that the hopefully you can see it's probably a bit small, but so the URL structure is L, so that's the landing pages folder, and then 5 things, which is great. Now, what I would like is the next. So if somebody lands on the landing page, so the main landing page for this 5 things, in fact, let me just really quickly show you so that this makes sense. Here we go. Right, this is it. So well, you can see up there on the URL, it's L/5 things. So that's the folder. And then landing is the name of the page there. Now, I would actually like to get rid of that because in my kind of previous web development years, that would be basically like an index file. So if there was a file or a page within a folder called index, then basically all web servers on the planet will just go, the index page is the page to show if all you get is the folder name.
Hmm.
So that's what I would like. But if I hit that, well, this is not the page you're looking for,
Yeah.
which is a bit, I don't know, it's just a bit weird. I've tried creating a page within this folder called, this is a page landing. So if I've tried creating a page called index, that doesn't work. Apparently it used to work back in 2018, something like that, but then they removed the feature for some reason. And I don't know why. It's not a massive issue. I don't particularly use folders too much anyway, but I just think that is a bit odd. There also things like, again, which is a bit weird. I've only got a test post in here, but there are no post revisions.
Okay.
Um, so I haven't got ignore this. I'm just playing with it at the moment. It's all a bit. This is an example, by the way. I've got color version. So whether I want this particular layout to have my blue hero header or the yellow hero header, and it'll switch accordingly. But yeah, there's just no revisions. There are backups. WordPress, Webflow takes automatic backups. I think every 20 automatic saves it makes in your browser, it creates an automatic backup restore point on the
Okay.
server, and you can create manual ones as well. But of course, that's using a sledgehammer to crack a nut if you just want to just flick back to a previous version of a blog post. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so that's a bit odd. There's no bulk editing of pages either. There's bulk editing of images. So I can come here and I can say, I don't know, select all or unselect some of these, and I can do different things with them. So I can kind of bulk edit images to an extent, but pages, I can't select that one and that one and that one and do things with them. I've got to, if I wanted to duplicate a set of them all at once, or wanted to delete a whole set at once, I'd have to individually go into the settings for each page. Which
Okay.
I mean, the settings are great. You set the slug, you can set password protection. You've got all your SEO settings, title tag and meta description, and open graph, and all kinds of things, and custom code that you can put in for each individual page. But yeah, there's none of that bulk editing. And the other sort of final thing, I suppose, is there isn't a concept of shortcodes at all.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example really quickly. So like, let's say on my tools page, I am always trying to get people's email addresses, really, just so that I can spam them to death. And so what I like to have is these little call to action boxes. Just every so often, there's one. There'll be another one soon. There always is. There's another one there. There's probably another 2 or 3. Now, when I'm creating a static page, I can basically like create this little section here. I can set all the settings that I want on it, and then save it as a symbol. So these are symbols. These are, you might call them templates in
Yeah.
Elementor. Like you save a template and you can reuse it again and again and again. And by default, it's a master copy. So if I edit this here, it will update all instances of that. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. Just to say as well, you can unlink the instance if you want to detach it completely, but you can also, for any of these symbols, set individual elements to be editable, but not others. So
Okay.
like if you've got a tutorial card
Yeah.
design, for a tutorial, and you want to use that design and you want it to be maintained across the entire site, but obviously each testimonial has got its own photo, person's name, the actual testimonial. So as you're designing, you can come into this panel on the side. I won't find an example because it would be too long, and it just gives you fields to fill in to
Okay.
change the person's. Anyway, so I can add these symbols to this page, which is kind of like a shortcode. I just like putting a shortcode and it just pulls in that template. That is brilliant. There's no such concept in the CMS at all. So if I'm creating blog posts and at some point in my thing there, I go, right, actually at that point there, you get stuff that you can add in. At that point here, I want to add in a symbol, or you do get embed code. You can
Right.
pop in any HTML, CSS, iframes, JavaScript, whatever you like, in there, and drag it around and stuff. But there's just no sense of like being able to do that. I found some workarounds which are absolutely fine, but I must say it was a bit of a weird one. That is probably about it, though. They're like really the only things that kind of I wish that they'd kind of sort out.
But I'm not sure how old Webflow is, but I mean, it is one of those platforms that is constantly developing. They are pushing out new updates, new features. So I can imagine where it is now. If enough people are interested in those kinds of features, they will be added. They will expand those kinds of things. You know,
Mm,
it is still a fairly immature platform when you look at tools like WordPress that have been around for probably well over a decade, kind of thing. So it's
17
still
years
pretty
actually, I think.
yeah, so it's still pretty early in its life cycle. So I think it's probably still got plenty of scope to expand and develop, over the years. And maybe they will bring the short codes in. Again, going back to that terminology where you talk about symbols. Symbols to me doesn't make a lot of sense.
Mm,
Global layouts, global templates, things like that, which is kind of very similar to what it does inside a tool like Elementor, where you can
mm,
unlink them or you can keep them as linked, and they retain. You edit one and they all change, those kinds of things. So again, like I
mm,
say, it is just changing your terminology, what you're used to do a very similar kind of function.
mm. Yeah, it is. That's it. I think the Webflow development team um, have a policy of being really careful of not kind of bowing to every single customer request, because we know what that ends up like. You
Yes.
know, it's just an absolute mess. And it's one of the reasons why I think I've always personally gravitated towards tools that actually don't allow you to fiddle too much. And the developers or the programmers or the designers or whoever have carefully thought of the trade-offs.
Hmm.
You know, what trade-offs are we happy to have? And are we going to kind of ruin this platform by adding in the ability to do all these things that people are asking? So yeah, but it's one of the things that I actually like. It's the reason I've pretty much always used Basecamp as my project management system. There's a list a mile long in Basecamp of stuff that it doesn't do,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
can imagine. Yeah.
and I quite like that. You know, I quite like that, definitely.
Awesome stuff. Right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a couple of comments from the chat, and I'm going to throw those at you now, Dave. So you have to be put on the spot. We're going to give you a little countdown timer and a spotlight over the top of you, just so you feel the pressure. So if anybody's got any comments, any questions for Dave with regards to Webflow and all those kinds of things we've been talking about tonight, drop those in the chat section below. We're going to start off with this one. So I'm hoping you can see these. Let me know, Dave. Can you see these okay? The
No, I
little
can see those fine. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So is the style guide inspiration from HubSpot?
No, it's not actually. I don't know what that is. I got this from the basis of it actually from Webflow themselves. They just have a template that they created, I think, and I just took that and then just doctored it for my own uses.
Repurpose what's already there.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Charlie's asking a quick question as well. So saying, have you ever done a kind of GT metrics comparing a sort of a similar kind of layout between not so much Oxygen because I know you don't use that, but like Elementor and Webflow? Have you kind of done any kind of
Mm.
comparison to see is it much better? Is it quicker?
Well, I can't say that I've done a like a scientifically accurate comparison because that would mean I would have to create two identical websites on both platforms with the same content, the same images, and I ain't got time for that. So,
You've got at
but
least half an hour now, Dave.
yeah, hang on, I'll just crank something out for you. But I will say, and I had a lot of comments when I made my new site live, how fast it was. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, it's Webflow is fast in the back end. It's super. I mean, like boom, everything just change something, it's done. But also on the front end as well. They're using AWS
Right.
hosting, which I think we can all agree is top notch. Um, Fastly, I think, is the CDN that they're using, and they're
Okay.
just doing all kinds of compression and all kinds of optimization on the back end. But having said that, I've not had any caching issues whatsoever. You know, like when you make a change and the live site hasn't updated.
Oh yeah, definitely.
None of that at all. So
Well, I was watching something the other day, and I'm pretty sure it was Webflow, and they were sort of showing. It might have even been your content. I can't remember, but it's like showed a sort of a typical simple page, in Webflow, and then just sort of showed the code, which is automatically compressed and minified basically. And
mm,
fair play, it was literally like a screen and a half to have the
tiny.
entire site. Now, you and I probably know, and probably most people in the chat, you look at the code for WordPress with a blank page. Especially if you've got a page built like Elementor or something, and just a theme installed, that's already about 6 pages long of calling out God knows how many scripts and so on. So from the get go,
Mm,
it's already on a pretty sort of strong base because
yeah,
it is just much more streamlined code wise, and they don't
yeah,
have to. They're not putting a page builder on top of a theme, on top of WordPress, on top of a
mm,
pile of plugins. All
yeah,
those things, just installing them just adds
yeah,
weight. No matter how much you minify, yes, you can get fast loading sites, but most of the time that's because you have to be on a really high quality server to start off with. So all those things mount up cost wise, which kind of goes back to what you said right back at the beginning of this, is that the pricing of Webflow can kind of be a bit of a that's expensive kind of a attitude from people. But when you kind
mm,
of take your lifetime deals or your annual subscriptions and all the different things and your hosting and your SSL certificates and all those kinds of things, when you
mm.
kind of take a look at how much that actually costs you to run a site,
And the
I think a lot of
time.
and the time, yeah, I think a lot of people will probably be surprised at the actual cost, not the
Mm,
perceived cost, which could be very, very different. So, would you
mm.
kind of
Yeah, yeah.
say that's kind of where you were coming from?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. The fact that you literally like click a button, you've got a new Webflow site. You click another button, you've got a new Webflow site, and and a built. I didn't get a chance to show you, but a built-in dev server, staging server, and a
Yeah.
live server that you can, selectively decide to publish to or not or remove. And yeah, just to have there's I made a list the other day of all the plugins that I don't need on this site. And there's
That
all
list
kinds
long.
of different things, page builders and SEO plugins and page speed plugins and all kinds of things. Um, I think it's if you're hosting a site like on a custom domain, I think it's like $20 a month if you something like that anyway, if you pay monthly. And I mean that is like the price for Kinster,
Mm.
who are an amazing WordPress host, like super fast, super secure, and all that kind of thing. Amazing support. But that's just the price for the hosting.
Yeah.
You know, like as you say, factor in everything else as well. But yeah, I back to the original question. I've just found it like super super fast. I've not really had to do anything to manually at all to make that happen.
I mean, the other thing we've got to kind of consider as well is the fact that you can use Webflow for no cost at all. You want to learn
Mm,
Webflow, set up a Webflow account, and you can do pretty much. There's a couple of limitations, but you can pretty much get comfortable with the platform, build your entire site before you even need to think about spending a single penny, dollar, dime, whatever, on
yeah,
actually putting the site live. So,
yeah.
developing sites for clients, you don't have to charge them, or you're not sort of taking that out of your development time, especially if you've got a client that takes a long time to get the ball rolling. You can develop, you can build, you can do all those things, and it doesn't cost you a single
Mm,
penny. I
yeah.
think people might not necessarily know that, or be kind of like thinking, sort of going down that route of train of thought.
Yeah, the Webflow pricing actually is probably worth. I know we're probably running a bit over time, but it's probably worth just explaining like the
Yeah,
the
go for it.
brief version because um, it's not clear. I'm
No.
not going to defend them. It really isn't clear, honestly. I think it's weird how it's done, but um, anyway, if you go to the pricing page, it says that there are site plans and account plans. And it basically says there are two plans. And that makes you think, oh, I need to pick one. Do I need a site plan or do I need an account plan? The way it works is that to use Webflow, you need an account plan. Like that is like one monthly fee
Yeah.
for all your websites. And it's like $16 a month or something like that. There is a free account plan, but you get a maximum of 2 projects with
Mm.
that. So if you want to have in development unhosted Webflow, call it, it basically means you've not got your own domain connected to it. You've got a Webflow domain. You can publish that. You can show people that. People can come and you can actually host your website unhosted
Yeah.
on
There you go.
Webflow as long as you don't mind not having your own custom domain. And you can just some people do that. So I think there's like the light account plan is $16 a month, and you get up to 10 unhosted projects, 10 projects just in development. And then I think there's a pro, which is unlimited.
Okay.
Then if you want to there are some limitations with the unhosted as well. I think there's a limit to the number of CMS items like posts and things you can have as well, but it's plenty enough to get a site like ready,
Yeah.
more than enough. And then at the point that you want to, so let's say one of those sites, let's say I've got 10, I've got the 10 plan limit and I've got 10 unhosted sites. I've maxed out my account plan, like the light one, I think that is, right? If now one of those is ready to go live and we've got a custom domain and we want to hook it up, you then need to buy a site plan, which is like hosting for
Mm.
that particular site. And that is like $16 a month or $20 a month or something like that, which is the hosting. By the way, you can actually transfer that to a client and have the client pay.
Yeah.
Webflow will build the client for you and will add your markup that you choose onto that as well. So you don't actually have to pay it. Your client's paying the bill anyway. Now, what happens with the site plan is it increases multiple times. Like you get thousands of CMS items, and I don't know. But that all it took. It was yesterday that I figured out how this works. When you buy a site plan for one of your sites, it now frees up that slot in your
Okay.
account plan. So
Okay.
now you've got 9 websites and a spare slot for another one.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. It
So
does.
That's how the pricing works.
But maybe they need to get you on the sales page to explain it to people. You know,
Yeah, just explain it in just like simple, normal language, like English or something. Would be would be good. Just
yeah.
they have the details on there, and actually, when you know what it is, and you go back and read it, you think, oh, actually, that does make sense. But I've had several more than I can't count how many people have said to me, "Have you figured out the pricing yet?" I'm like, no, I haven't. I think I've got it now.
Fingers crossed. They'll change it tomorrow now, so it'll be completely different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this is a question for you now, then, Dave. So let me just pull this up on screen. So when would you recommend one option over the other? So when would you say WordPress is a better choice to Webflow, or would you just basically say these days that actually you think Webflow is the better option?
I must say, and I know this probably is a bit controversial, but I actually, for a lot of people, would recommend using Webflow um, if they haven't invested a ton of like time or just invested a lot of energy into using WordPress. So, like, I certainly wouldn't say to somebody, "Don't use WordPress. It's a terrible platform. You want to put all your eggs in the Webflow basket," because that's just not the case. If you're trucking along with WordPress and doing really well, carry on using it because it's great. I've kind of got like the luxury. I had the luxury, I suppose, of having just a bit of time just to mess around with it. I
Mm.
haven't actually got any clients. So I had the luxury of just trying it and messing about and having a learning curve, and it was fine for me to take a few weeks or even a couple of months to figure it out. So, but I think if you're maybe getting a bit tired of the constant needy child nagging of plugin updates and plugin update conflicts and plugins updating and breaking your sites and having to worry about configuring stuff and hosting and security and all that kind of thing, then I would say it's actually worth giving it a go. um, I'm not sure. It probably does appeal to a certain kind of person or not, but I would say I can't really think of a website that I would want to build with any sort of functionality. What it can't do, I should say, I mean, there are actually third-party like membership plugins. If you just search Webflow membership integrations, Webflow have got a page with all kinds of them. So that's great. But like, if you wanted to build an online course platform,
Yeah.
it's not going to do it. You've not got the lifter or learn dash or
No.
anything like that WordPress has got.
But it's
um
not really
as
intended for that. You know,
it's
it's a
not intended
website
for that
builder.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, WordPress's database architecture struggles massively with the complex database structure and relationships of
Yeah.
those kind of sites anyway. So I would use a platform that is dedicated to it.
And I'm with
Definitely.
you on that one, absolutely, because I'm looking at sort of releasing my first course next year, and
Yes.
yes, um, but I've kind of looked at the self-hosted, like you said, like Learn Dash, Lifter LMS, Tutor LMS, all those kind of things, and not to take anything away from them, but again, it
No.
kind of goes back to that you have to have a pretty hefty dedicated platform, as well as video hosting, security, all those kinds of different things that when you start off looking at, oh, okay, I'll buy the software and it's going to cost me $200, £200 a year. And then my hosting is going to cost me £10 a month, for basic cloud hosting. Well, that's fine if you've
Mm,
got 10 or 15 people on there. But
yeah.
then when you scale, which ultimately is what you want to do, you've got to look
Mm,
at what's your concurrent users. How many people are actually going to be taking
exactly.
this course at the same time, and then you might
Yeah.
have to scale your cloud hosting or your VPN, VPS, sorry, I should say,
Yeah.
accordingly, and that can then very quickly get very expensive.
Yeah,
So
I've had long chats with a prominent online course training company in the WordPress space, actually, many times, and they're kind of WordPress based, and they actually can't. They've had to tweak LearnDash and other kind of tools that they've had to kind of put together. They actually can't update them anymore because they've had to customize them so much just in order to be able to have those kind of concurrent users.
yeah,
Their hosting bill is astronomical because of it. And that's one of the reasons why I thought I ain't having that. I'm just going to just use a platform that's going to do
Yeah,
all of that for me. Thank you very much.
exactly. Like I say, I think you've just got to look at logic. And going back to sort of what we were just talking about now, I mean, WordPress 5.6 is now rolled out today, and you can already see
Yeah.
in the different forums and the different sort of Facebook groups and that, there's already that sense of impending doom in some people
Mm,
because after 5.5 and Elementor 3 coming out at the same time, and all the problems that different people had for whatever
mm,
reasons, that's put the kind of fear into people that update into a major revision like this is something that is hard going. Plus the fact if you've
mm,
got 100 clients all running on WordPress, you can't honestly realistically create 100 staging sites to test that combination of website out, not without losing a load of money. You know, that's gonna take you weeks to do realistically as a 1 or 2 man band. You know, so there's a real benefit to using a tool like Webflow or an NMS platform that
mm,
you don't have to worry about those things. You can take a little bit of a cut off the top. You know, Webflow makes that super easy. And you don't
mm,
have to worry about security updates, all those kinds of different things, which you do
mm.
realistically have to do with a platform like WordPress.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Obviously, the plugin architecture of WordPress is also its greatest strength.
Yeah,
We go back to trade-offs again. It just keeps going
exactly.
back
Yeah,
up. You know, that is the reason why WordPress is so ubiquitous. It's why it powers a 300% of the internet or whatever the stat is.
yeah, yeah.
You
And
know,
growing.
because you can extend it and make it do literally whatever you like. So, but you know, with that, then there is a trade-off, and the trade-off is the maintenance and the updates and the clashes with other plugins and you know, some dodgy developers who I don't know, probably don't test things properly before they make those updates and things like that. So yeah.
Exactly. Right, we'll take two more questions, and I think we'll wrap it up then because I'm conscious of keeping you all evening, Dave. So what I'm going to do is ask this one from Mr. Fairy Cake, and this is just basically, but do you have to pay for hosting separately with regards to Webflow?
No, no. That's it. So you pay for a site plan for the site if you want to hook up your custom domain, and that's your hosting all done. So they
Exactly.
host it for you, which for me is like brilliant, fantastic, because I can just get on with running my business.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is as a busy business owner, that's you want to concentrate on creating content, creating courses, you know, outlining what you're going to do, building your business, spend time on your business, not stuck in there faffing about
Mm,
making sure your website doesn't go down or your course is going offline because there's too many people on there or something. So I think all those things, you know, there's a quality of life that often goes unnoticed when you kind of like get down deep in the trenches, as it were. And I think, you know, sometimes it's just
mm.
nice to have something that just works that you just don't have to faff about with.
Yeah, it was one of the things that I grew a bit tired of. Really, I think there's all sorts of stuff, but it was the kind of anxiety of thinking, "Oh no, I've not looked at my website for a while. Yeah, I don't look, you
Yeah,
know." I've gone back to my own design build website. I actually upgraded to Elementor 3 only the other day, actually, because I just couldn't be bothered with the whole thing. I've updated on several other sites and test sites and things and played with it extensively. But I noticed that there was some enormous. I know that they changed the code. So I'm not having a go at Elementor, but I know that they changed the structure. But you know, suddenly, I've, pre all of this the version 3 stuff, you know, just kind of go back and something's just gone. My entire blog section just disappeared
mm,
like a few months ago, and styling just disappeared and just gone. It's like, oh my god, it's because such a thing updated and it now conflicts with something else, and it's just something I could kind of just do without, really.
exactly. Plus the fact now that with WordPress 5.5, they put in there the automatic updates, which for me is something that should be globally disabled to start off with, and you opt
Mm,
in. You know, it's like that's just come on, it's WordPress. If WordPress developers don't know that there's tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of plugins and themes and God knows what out there that can
mm,
cause incompatibility and instability issues, don't put something in there that's going to make that 10 times worse for people like, you know, people freelancing, web designers, agencies, whatever. It's like, oh, come on, you're just making life more difficult. It's like putting a pile of tacks on the road in front of your car and then driving down it and wondering why, oh, I got a puncture. Well,
Yeah,
what do you know? Okay, so I have one
exactly.
more question. Let's have a little look. Let's have a little look. What am I going to do? I'm gonna pull Richard up because Richard was a little bit late coming in, but he's going to get the last question tonight. So Richard's asking, perhaps you cover this, but what about comparing Webflow to a platform like Brizzy Cloud?
Well, I have to say I've not used Breezy Cloud, but I have heard like brilliant things. What I've gleaned about it, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that it's kind of quite landing page focused. Would you say that Breezy Cloud is a really dedicated the full package to develop like fully functional websites? I'm not
Uh,
sure.
yes, if you want to keep it to a traditional static website, then yes, you can do all the things you'd want to do in there. They are rolling out at some point the blog integration, so you'll have like a blog module, which would be very akin, I would have thought, to the CMS module in Webflow.
Yeah,
They have talked about some form of e-commerce, but obviously they can't integrate WooCommerce because Brizzy Cloud is not WordPress based.
yeah, of
So
course.
I would say to sort of semi answer the question alongside you, Dave, for Richard, is
Mm,
I think Brizzy Cloud is a little bit further back down the road from a tool like Webflow, which is probably a little bit ahead of it in development because it has more of those dynamic features built into it, even though they're still pretty streamlined or limited in what you can do with them to an extent, to the scope of them, I would say. You
mm,
still you still have those in there, so you could use it as a blog, you could use it as a resource, you could use it where you want content management or you want to give the client the access to add their own content without having to touch the design aspect of it. So I would say
mm,
there's some similarities with a tool like Brizzy Cloud, but
yeah.
also enough sort of like differences to make them sort of like chalk and cheese, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, from what I know of it, it strikes me that Breezy Cloud is just for a different purpose and a different audience and a
Yeah,
different need. I know that uh, to start with, actually, the the thought that you could have a really simple cloud-based tool where you could just create landing pages really quickly and just create stuff. There's an enormous amount of value with that. The tool that you were testing and teaching the other day, Swipe Pages,
hmm.
is a similar thing as well.
Yeah,
It's for a specific thing, and I think Webflow is a much more kind of in-depth, full, professional, website building framework and
yeah.
platform. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I think you're right on that one. That Webflow has a bigger tool set to it. Brizzy
Mm.
Cloud, Brizzy, whichever we want to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I think what Brizzy has going for it, the Brizzy Cloud, is take the hosting side away from it. I like the synergistic link between you can build your site on the Brizzy server, the cloud servers,
Mm.
you can host it somewhere else, but you can have that link between the two, so you can still go back to your cloud account, update there, and push those changes to your own server. That's
Yeah.
something I think is really quite cool, quite innovative from what they're doing over there. But I think
Yeah.
when they bring out the CMS options, I think it will then go up another step and get closer to the type of thing that you're doing with a tool like Webflow.
Yeah. Just to say, with Webflow, I know a few people that do some fancy stuff actually connecting between Webflow and WordPress. So I don't know whether you know Adam Lacey, who does Split Hero. There's the WordPress split testing tool. Adam is a great developer, and he actually uses, because he loves Webflow so much. And he's a hardcore WordPress developer, really. So what he does is he uses Webflow as his builder. So he actually builds his pages, his templates. Basically just uses it as a page builder, and then he uses a service called Udesly, Udelesey. I think it is Udesly. I think it's just udesly.com.
Right.
Um, and it provides connectors between web like Webflow and Shopify,
Okay.
WordPress, Ghost, like Jamstack as well. These kind of new fangled like headless CMS. And so what he does, he uses Udesly and it connects to he creates, basically it packages up his Webflow site as a custom WordPress theme. So he
Okay.
doesn't need a page builder, doesn't need all like a whole host of other plugins, and it provides this like nifty little static page editor like bar at the bottom of the WordPress of his WordPress site. So clients can actually go in and like literally just like edit, on the screen on the page and change stuff, the stuff that he's allowed to be changed. The
Yeah.
client still has to log into WordPress to edit like posts, blog posts and custom posts and things like that. But so he's been using that, and he just absolutely, he was telling me about it the other day. He was very excited. So there is a way to kind of use both of them, to use the
Mm.
strengths of both.
Yeah, I think the Webflow community is definitely growing and probably finding other ways of combining various different tools together to create a sort of
Yeah.
hybrid approach to creating your content, creating your site. So I think it's a kind of exciting time at the moment to see what's going on and how you can start to utilize those tools to create
Mm.
something that works for you. And I think it's a really exciting time. And I think tools like Webflow are absolutely needed to give the industry a kick up the butt, because I think that's the reason why you've got tools like Editor X coming out, where that's the
Yeah.
next level of your Wix kind of thing, gone away from the very simplistic to something that's incredibly powerful. I mean, I don't know if you've tried it, but Editor X that's a bit of a beast of a platform.
Yeah, I gave it a go actually. I got in on the beta test when it came out and I tried it for about, I don't know, 20 minutes, and I thought, this is blowing my tiny mind.
Yeah, not the most straightforward and easiest thing to do. Okay,
No.
so I want to say thank you very much, Dave. So I'm going to just hand it over to you now, so you can just tell
Thank you.
anybody exactly where they can find out more information about yourself and the kind of things that you're doing now with davefoy.co.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, yeah. So you can find me at davefoy.co, which is a new site. I built it in this platform called Webflow. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Um, and the focus of that, I've wanted, long story short, I love teaching people tech, teaching people WordPress and Elementor and things like that. Absolutely love it. But I've also had this burning desire to inspire people who have got tech knowledge to teach. I mean, there's just so many benefits that I've had in my own life, and it's something that I believe I can teach other people to do, most definitely. So I started this new site, which is basically, I've only just got going, but my aim is to just to, I'm going to be creating like YouTube content and some free stuff and some paid stuff as well, to help people who have got tech expertise, tech skills, who probably haven't maybe thought that they could teach online and enjoy all the benefits of that kind of business and lifestyle, um, for me to show them exactly how to do it. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much, Dave. So I just want to
Thank
wrap things
you.
up now and say thank you very much, Dave, for joining me tonight, for imparting your experience of Webflow. Hope everybody's enjoyed this. And if you have any comments, if you missed the live stream, drop your comments into the comment below the video for the replay. And I shall see you tomorrow evening for another lockdown live, a little bit of an impromptu one where we can talk about a few things that are kind of going on in the community at the moment with Elementor and WordPress. But that's it from me tonight. Thank you very much for everybody joining us, and thank you very much, Dave.
Awesome. Bye.